Wings is a 1927 silent film which won the biggest prize at the first Academy Awards. Made at the end of the silent era, it's often hidden from the cinematic spotlight because it was released just before The Jazz Singer, the first film with synchronized dialogue. And looking at Wings in terms of story, it's clear why it's often forgotten in discussions about silent film. Wings isn't exactly original, it's just a superficial love triangle set against the backdrop of the US Air Force in World War I. It also lacks the metaphorical power and wider societal message of critically acclaimed counterparts such as Sunrise and Metropolis. But Wings isn't a film that's supposed to have an original story or powerful message. It's a film that aims for spectacle and achieves it. On release, it was a huge success, running in cinemas for over a year and winning 2 Oscars at the inaugural awards. It was the first film to capture the excitement of the aviation mania that was running through America in the late 1920s, with its gripping air dogfights allowing audiences to experience the dangers and reality of airplanes in a way they never had before. To do this required technological innovations that, whilst not as obvious as the use of sound in The Jazz Singer, were still revolutionary. With its pioneering camera work and commitment to stunts, Wings would create action sequences and shots that filmmakers still replicate today. In this video, I'll be exploring how they achieved some of the fantastic cinematography seen in Wings. Hi, I'm Jacob, and you're watching 1728 Film. The upcoming Top Gun sequel, Top Gun Maverick, promises audiences CGI-free in-flight sequences in which the actors were physically filmed in the aircraft, with Tom Cruise claiming that no one's ever done this before. There's never been an aerial sequence shot this way. And whilst these sequences are unlike anything seen in recent memory, except Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, the innovation of filming actors in the sky is not unprecedented. It was first done in 1927 by Wings. Directed by William Wellman, himself a pilot in World War I, Wings was the first fiction film to capture planes in the sky. With the help of a skilled engineering team and masses of funding from both the film studio and the US Air Force, Wellman was able to create a film that would inspire a generation of both filmmakers and pilots, simply by filming actors and planes in a way that had never been done before. The most recognisable shot in Wings, one that has become such a staple of the aviation genre that is used in every film where a character pilots a plane or spacecraft, is the cockpit shot. The popularity of this shot in every film that followed Wings makes it, to a modern audience, just seem like the natural angle to go for, but at the time it had never been used before. And whilst in most films after Wings a cockpit shot would be created using special effects, in Wings everything is real. This is for the simple reason that when Wings was made, the special effects did not exist. The only way that Wellman could envision telling the story was to film the actors in the sky, so he found a way of doing it. At great expense, engineer Roy Pomeroy and his team designed and built a new camera rig that attached onto airplanes. The creation of these rigs, alongside other effects of the film, was such an achievement that it earned Pomeroy the film's second Academy Award for Best Engineering Effects. Building the rig wasn't without problems, however. Due to the small size of the planes, the film predominantly used actual planes from the First World War, and the large size of the cameras, it was a difficult and expensive task, which, alongside the many delays in production, as I'll discuss later, led to Wings becoming the most expensive film ever made at the time. The size of the rig also meant that on some planes there wasn't space for a cameraman to fly with the actors. Therefore, the actors had to pilot the planes, work the camera, and perform the scenes alone. It worked like this. The actor would take off, then once in the air pull a string to start the camera. They would then perform their actions before landing. Most of the actors who ended up doing this were trained stuntmen or army pilots. However, the film's leads, Richard Arlen and Buddy Rogers, also had to fly for their close-ups. Arlen had previous flying experience, so this was no problem for him. Rogers, however, had to learn for the film. He soon found that he suffered from extreme motion sickness and would be sick after every take. Nevertheless, he persevered, spending 100 hours in the air during production. The cockpit shots are not the only moments that drive the film's excitement, with the wider shots of planes fighting being similarly impressive. These shots were as expensive to create as building the rigs, but not because they required new technology, because they relied on the weather. In The Aviator, Scorsese's biopic of Howard Hughes, we see the troubled production of Hell's Angels. Hughes wouldn't film unless there were clouds in the sky, and kept the crew waiting on standby for days, costing millions of dollars. And whilst this did happen, what the aviator doesn't mention is that Hughes only knew he needed clouds because Wings had experienced the same problem a year earlier. Test footage for Wings showed that when filmed against a cloudless sky, the planes were hard to spot and the footage was unusable. They needed cloud to add depth and contrast to the image. Therefore, Wings would only film on cloudy days. So of course, the weather for the first 4 weeks of production consisted of clear skies, driving up the budget. The results of all this hard work and time are, however, astounding, with the film's action sequences feeling incredibly real. When the planes spiral through the sky, fly in tight formations, and dip in and out of the clouds shooting at each other, it looks and feels real and dangerous. Because it is real and dangerous. In 1920s Hollywood, accidents and deaths on film sets were commonplace, with Wings being no exception, with 1 death recorded, and legendary stuntman Dick Grace almost dying twice. Grace, one of a handful of stuntmen not to die for a film, and one of the few people to serve in both world wars, was someone who saw stunts as a science, risking his life in the safest way possible. For Wings, this included strategically soaring the frames of planes so that when crashed they would crumple in a safer and more cinematic fashion, and organising landing zones, where the ground was filled with softer dirt and barbed wire was replaced with twine. But the precautions were not enough. Grace's first crash was into real barbed wire after he overshot the landing zone. Unhurt, he returned to survey the wreck and noticed a jagged piece of metal just inches from where his head had been. Undeterred, he got back into the air and into another accident. This time, hitting the hard ground and smashing his head into the instrument panel. Initially, he felt fine. However, he later collapsed and discovered he had broken his neck. Told he would never fly again, just 17 weeks later, Grace was in the air filming for 1928's Lilac Time. These dangers, alongside the creation of new technologies, meant that filming these sequences for real didn't last long. Within just a few years, the cockpit shots would be shot on studio sets using a variety of techniques including back projection, composite photography, and later blue and green screens. As well as being safer, these techniques are also cheaper, making their use an easy decision for the studios. And, to a majority of audiences, the results go almost completely unnoticed. If the filmmakers are doing their job right, no one is looking at the effects, instead they are being swept along by the story. However, I would argue that even those who are engrossed in the film still feel something is missing. Technology is of course always improving, but even in modern films there's still a disconnect between what the actors are doing and what's happening behind them that gives a sense that what you're watching is not real. This disconnect doesn't exist in Wings, and it's because of this that the film works so well. In Wings, you can truly feel the danger that not only the characters, but the actors themselves are in. In 2017, Dunkirk took a step towards recapturing this realism by filming real planes, avoiding CGI. But whilst there is footage of the actors in the sky, the close-ups were still shot on the ground. Top Gun Maverick promises to take this further, capturing realism by really filming it. With the quality of the IMAX cameras used, alongside the faster speed of the planes, it looks as if it could recreate, and perhaps even surpass, the danger and spectacle seen in Wings. Wings is far from perfect, but when viewed for what it is, pure spectacle cinema with great action sequences. It's great fun. It may not be high on most people's watch lists, but it is worthy of appreciation for more than just having won an Academy Award. Thanks for watching. There's also another moment in Wings which I really wanted to mention, but didn't fit in anywhere because it's not part of an action scene. It's this tracking shot. This shot is reshared every few months, with comments on how its cinematography puts modern films to shame. And it's great. So great, it was recreated in The Last Jedi. To create it, a camera rig was mounted to the ceiling of the set. As the camera moves forward, the actors move away in carefully choreographed performances, before we finally settle on the drunken face of Buddy Rogers. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.